The subject of our global summit is the ethics of Apple's sourcing of tin from mines in Indonesia. Though it is known that some tin mines in Indonesia use child labor and offer poor working conditions, no definitive link has been shown that Apple sources its tin from any such mines. Whether a link exists or not, Apple cannot release itself from ethical obligations simply by sourcing its tin from countries where mines are already operated more in accordance with our preferences. Because Apple is a large company with a market cap that is almost twice as high as Indonesia's annual GDP, it should continue to source tin in Indonesia and use its influence in that market to bring a positive change to the tin industry to provide better outcomes for workers. Indonesia is a developing country, the fourth most populous country behind the United States. It is the most populous Muslim-majority country, is ranked 54th on the Economic Freedom Index and 107th on the Human Development Index. But education is still a challenge, with a mean average of 7.6 years of completed schooling for adults over 25, and international student assessment scores ranking at the bottom of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The diversity of work skills in Indonesia is low compared to fellow ASEAN 6 country Malaysia, with a disproportionate enrollment in social sciences, business and law, and agriculture, and insufficient enrollment in health, engineering, and the natural sciences to promote economic parity with its neighbor nations. Apple could work to promote better work conditions by offering scholarships in mining and geological engineering to Indonesian students, so that mining operations that Apple sources from would be run safely, ethically, and without devastating impact to the environment. Tin mining is a profitable enterprise in Indonesia, but it is a dangerous profession for the men, women, and children who work in it. Tin miners there make about $7 US per day. Due to these poor wages, workers cannot afford to fight for adequate labor rights, safety standards, or proper worker protections. The Indonesian government lacks necessary labor regulations, so most workers are unable to protect themselves against risks associated with their work, such as late payments, work safety, or work-related injuries. Many of these workers are not treated well, and they are made to work in unhealthy and unhygienic conditions, which incur serious consequences to their emotional and physical well-being. In a 2018 report, the Department of Labor estimates 98,000 children from ages 10 to 14 are working in the mining industry in Indonesia. Apple should create monetary and contractual incentives for their tin mining contracts. Frequent audits by Apple would ensure contractors, subcontractors, and their next-level suppliers are following their set rules. Those contracts that fail to meet safe work practice audits should be subjected to contract termination. 90% of Indonesian tin is mined and produced on the islands of Bangka Belitung. Before tin mining, the livelihoods of the people of Bangka revolved around the farming and fishing industries. As reckless mining operations led to environmental damage that crippled those industries, the people of Bangka were left with no option but to work the mines. It has been observed around the world that mining operations put immense pressure on the natural environment, and too much mining activities deplete natural resources and contribute to climate change. Unethical mining activities destroy natural resources and impact biodiversity. Apple's situation involving the Indonesian tin market is similar to incidents that involve fellow American business Nike in 1991, when activist Jeff Ballinger published a report documenting low wages and poor working conditions in Indonesia. After this rose to national attention, Nike established a department dedicated to improving the lives of factory laborers, implemented U.S. OSHA clean air standards in its foreign factories, conducted audits in 600 of its foreign factories, and published a list of the factories it contracts with, which helped consumers trust the company's commitment to fair labor. Apple should work with officials in Bangkok to terminate any current business relationship with the tin mining industry until they agree to implement sufficient child labor laws that prevent children from being coerced into tin mining, and increase the wages of the tin miners so that they are paid for their time and experience. Apple has made several proposals to use renewables exclusively in 10 years. Apple has removed over 18 smelters and refiners who are not willing to submit to third-party auditing for its supply chain. With enforced auditing guidelines, those who were unwilling to comply with Apple's plan were removed. This is part of Apple's initiative to source conflict materials such as tin, tungsten, and gold more responsibly, and prevent further violations of human rights. In order for their plan to use only renewables in the next 10 years, Apple has announced a major expansion of their recycling programs. This allows customers to send their old iPhone back to Apple to be disassembled and recycled. Apple has received over 1.2 million US devices each year and have also used the material to refurbish almost 8 million Apple devices to be put back on the market. This change has helped divert thousands of metric tons of tin and other metals from landfills. Apple's goal to use only renewables in 10 years seems like the best possible solution, because no worker, however well compensated or protected, would be needed to unearth raw materials for the production of new products. But other companies who require raw materials or less costly labor in the developing world would do well to be mindful of the expectation of Western consumers. While a rift certainly exists between what an American customer might expect to be involved in the production of their consumer goods and the realities of labor in the developing world, a useful appreciation for the economic realities of working men and women in poorer countries has to be considered. Lower wages than we pay in the West for the same work, or less hygienic working conditions that our middle class is accustomed to, is the norm in the developing world, so words like exploitation aren't very useful to describe it. Many people in the developing world flock to these kinds of jobs because they don't have better opportunities, and the wages are better than what they might be paid elsewhere if those jobs vanished. Consumers punishing American companies for sourcing their raw materials or labor in the developing world do not create better outcomes for the workers there. Future investments in education, infrastructure, and physical capital, including the kinds of investment companies already make to do business there, will create better lives for the working men and women of these developing countries over time. It's a big world, and it takes time for developing economies to prosper, and we all, including Apple, should do what we can to make things better. But we can't wave a magic wand to solve these problems overnight. Economies are vastly complex, and quick fixes don't exist. So demonizing companies like Apple shouldn't be the convenient substitute for the arduous work it will take to make things better in the developing world.